Welcome to An Awful World, but not awful like you think.
This is the show where we discuss whether we would have discovered important advances in a world exclusively full of Haylies and Libbys. I'm Haylie.
And I'm Libby. And today we're talking about diet culture. That was a really upbeat way to introduce this episode that I think is really depressing.
I know, what a downer.
But we're talking about diet culture.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting topic. And I think about diet culture almost every day of my life.
Yes.
So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yes.
I will just kick off by saying that it is not as modern as I thought it was.
Yeah, I noticed too that it's like way back there.
Yeah, it's like way old.
Yeah.
Like at least like we'll get into it a little bit, but like in my opinion, like true diet culture is very like a much more modern idea, like maybe more like 80 years old. Like 1950s, like advertising and things, you know, are coming into play with TV and all of that. And so, but yeah, so it's much older than I thought, which I thought was really interesting. So before, like we had refrigerators, which like we had ice boxes probably in like the early 20th century, I think.
Sure.
Which is not a refrigerator,
right?
Obviously, but it's same concept. But still,
keeps your stuff cold.
Like we obviously we couldn't store things that were perishable,
right?
So whatever your quote unquote diet was just what was around you, which could vary a lot based on where you lived and you know, your ability to hunt and gather and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, in your community,
right? But this idea of fitness became a thing in Greece, like in ancient Greece. Which again makes sense, because that's where the Olympics originated. Yes. So, but what I thought was interesting is like, okay, yes, like the Olympics are definitely about like physical fitness, about like being the fastest and the best and yada, yada, blah, blah, whatever. But the Greek idea of fitness was actually more like whole body fitness. So being like spiritually fit, being physically fit, being mentally fit, like taking care of all those different aspects of your body, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, good for them.
Not so much just like how you look.
Yeah, they're like, we're well-rounded.
Right, yes, they were. And I think that that makes sense to me because I do feel like a lot of ancient culture still like being like fat was like a sign of wealth and like opulence. Like people knew like if you are fat, then you're like eating a lot. So you must have a lot of money and like.
And because you don't have to do the physical labor.
Right.
You get to pay someone else to do that.
So you're just sitting around just getting fat and sassy like that lady. Just gonna eat soups and just sit around and get fat and sassy.
My spirit animal.
So relatable.
100%. I love her.
So I thought that was cool. That's more, you know, not like focused on how your body looks. But this blew my mind. The very first diet book came out in the year 1558.
Oh my God. That's so old.
And it was called The Art of Living Long. Now, I'm not totally against this diet because the most basic form of the diet was that you're supposed to eat 12 ounces and only 12 ounces of food every day. But then also you should have 14 ounces of wine every day. And I was like, you know what? Hell yeah. 14 ounces of wine? This is the diet? I am on it. We've got this all day long. But can I eat a little more food or else I'm going to be like stumbling around drunk? But also refer back to our alcohol episode for how the Greeks, their wine was not your mother's wine.
Yeah.
So it was a lot like, it was diluted and everything. So being thin didn't really become a thing until the 1800s. So that's like really reflected in the fashion of the time, like really form-fitting dresses and things like that. Being like at the forefront was like made people want to be thin.
Okay.
So it's not like really an old idea, not really, really old, like, you know, 1558 being the first diet book. Like that's way older than I thought.
Yeah.
So the first like diet influencer is how they described him, which I thought was really funny, was this man named Lord Byron.
Okay.
And he was like the person that all the people looked up to in terms of like his body type. And what he would do is he would starve himself and then completely binge eat and then like wear a bunch of heavy clothes and try to sweat it all out.
Okay, so like the creator of the eating disorders, all of them, it seems.
Lord Byron, creator of eating disorders.
Surprise, surprise, it's a man.
Yeah, I know. And so he also like advised women specifically to go on this vinegar diet.
Ew, no.
Which is still kind of a thing in some form today. Because
is it the thing with the cayenne pepper and the apple cider vinegar?
It's not that, but that is certainly like what has turned into.
That's
like
nasty.
People still drink like apple cider vinegar before a meal and really think that that's going to like help them lose weight, which I think is interesting. But we'll get to it. But it was like he would like soak his food in vinegar and eat it and like all this stuff. And then so women began drinking vinegar. And like some women died after like drinking a pint of vinegar.
I mean, unless it's going to be pickles, I don't want to soak my food in vinegar.
No, that nasty. Just seems like a bad idea.
Also, vinegar just stinks to high heavens.
It does. It's very hard to. It's like
I'm not ingesting that.
Like I guess a thing today too is like kombucha. You know, kombucha is very like it smells vinegary.
Yeah.
When you drink it. Kombucha actually is like pretty tasty.
Yeah. There's like a pineapple one that I think is nice.
Yeah.
But even then I was like, ooh.
It's a mental thing to get over the smell of that. But anyway, so after that, like fad diets, like were totally just a big thing like throughout the 20th century and obviously are still a thing today.
Yeah.
In the 21st century.
Well, and then remember like all the housewives on the amphetamines.
Yeah.
And, and then they're all like, well, I was a size 0, even though I had 6 children and I got all the household chores done and we lived on steak and Jell-O. And I'm like, yes, because you were like strung out on meth.
Yes, literally.
Of course you were that thin.
Yes. You're jacked up on amphetamines.
Yes. Like, I don't know why you're surprised. I would also have all that energy and be that thin if I was on meth.
But also the thing about something like that is when you stop, you're like, you will also gain weight back.
Yes.
Because it's not teaching you how to change anything about your lifestyle.
No, it's not sustainable and it's not good for you.
No.
Just like every fad diet.
Like of which there are so many.
So many. And I know that like I've been on them and I see everybody else be on them and I see them on my TikTok and I see them on Pinterest and I see them everywhere. They used to be
keto,
in
do
magazines.
paleo, do
the
Weight Watchers. Yeah, all this
the
stuff.
The Special K diet.
Yeah, the Atkins diet.
Remember the commercials where it was like, if you can pinch an inch. And it's like, that's disgusting.
I did all those.
Oh yeah, 100%. I just saw a video the other day on TikTok and it's this guy, he does vintage recipes.
Oh yeah.
I love him. He cracks me up. But he did one doing like a diet that was in like Vogue or something. And it was like lose 5 pounds in a week.
No.
And so for like a week, he did this diet where it was like every day you drank a full bottle of wine. But it was like you had like 2 glasses of wine and hard-boiled eggs.
I may have written this off too quickly.
He like did it for the whole week and recorded himself and he was like, I feel horrible, like trash. He's like, he's like, the reason you lose weight is because you're napping constantly. He's like, I'm drunk by lunch because you ate hard-boiled eggs and you had a steak for dinner.
Okay, but try to get your protein in, but you need carbs.
But that was it. So you had like 2 glasses of wine and 2 hard-boiled eggs for breakfast. A glass of wine and 2 hard-boiled eggs for lunch, and then a glass of wine or like you finished the bottle of wine and had a steak for dinner every single day.
Wow.
And he was like, I haven't pooped all week. I have to take a nap after lunch. He's like, I feel so sick. And he's like, by the end, I lost 7 pounds. He's like, but also I lost my will to live.
Yeah. Which is how a lot of fad diets are.
Yes. Like, yeah, you could lose weight for a couple of days, but like you're going to gain it all back, probably plus some because you're starved for real food and all the energy that comes with having a balanced diet And because our society is so pressed on how you look, instead of like teaching you how to have a balanced meal and how to just like get that energy and like put it to use properly to be a well-rounded, fully balanced human being, like everybody feels like shit and no one learns anything about nutrition or how to take care of themselves. And that is why now, like you and I are like 30 and in our 30s and almost 30. And we're like, oh my God, I'm just now learning how to have a balanced meal.
It's so true. Like it literally took me 29 years to figure out. Like it really is as simple as calories in, calories out.
Yeah.
And so like every fad diet, like whether you realize it or not, is also intended to restrict your calorie intake.
Yeah.
That's just a like symptomatic of a fad diet. It's just not the part of it that they sell. Right. Like the part of it they sell is like cutting out carbs or only eating whole foods or blah, 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 blah. You know, there's so many things. So I just think it's interesting because like, you know, you could be eating whole foods, like natural peanut butter is a whole food.
Yeah.
Peanut butter has so many calories in it.
Yeah.
Literally like a tablespoon of peanut butter is like 90 calories or something absolutely absurd.
Because it's high fat.
Yes.
It's good fat for you.
Just like but avocados, very good fat for you.
But you also cannot just live on spoonfuls of peanut butter.
You don't want to do that.
No.
So like once I truly figured out like no food is a bad food.
Yes.
Then it's the easiest it's ever been. Like it's difficult because there are things I like want to do. And like, you know, so many things about our lives like today revolve around food, like, you know, meeting up with friends or
celebrations.
Yes. They're all very
holidays
food centered.
Yes.
So it's not difficult to get lost sort of in the like, you know, wanting to just eat whatever's sitting out in front of you at this thing. But once you figure out like, oh, like I can have bread and still lose weight. Like I can have Chick-fil-A and still lose weight. Like there's all kinds of things that you can still have and still have a perfectly balanced diet without ever having to restrict something like your carb intake or your fat intake or something like that.
Yes. Well, and how many times have we like ordered fast food because we're recording or like we had a hard day at work and we like go out for lunch or something and you're like, should I be bad today? And I have said, there's no such thing as being bad. Food has no morality. Yeah. Food is morally neutral. And you're like, okay. And I'm like, I have to say this because we grew up in the era of heroin chic, like the worst fad diets of the worst fad diets. And that is how you trick your mind into an eating disorder.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Which I know, like, we've talked about it before. Like, both of us absolutely have eating disorders.
100%.
Or, like, have struggled with that at some point. Now, you would look physically at Haylie and I, and we look different physically. Yeah. And you would think, neither of you have eating disorders. But that's not true. That's not true. It's not true. It's literally, like, it's very much in my head all the time that I say things like that. Like, ooh, should I be bad today? Like, I don't want to say that I was like raised to believe that food has morality, but like
I was.
Yeah. But I mean, it was very much like growing up in an age where people were frequently like ridiculing themselves based on their bodies.
Yep.
And like that was everywhere, like in all kinds of media, like even like if your like mom or your sister said something about it, like around you or in front of you, like subconsciously you're picking those things up.
Yes.
And then you're learning that you also need to like critique and ridicule your body. And so
I mean,
that's what happens.
Common phrases that were heard around like my household.
Nothing tastes as good as skinny feels.
Yes. Or fat fries equal fat thighs or fatty 2x4 can't fit through the kitchen door.
Oh my God, that's awful.
Or by certain family members, my nickname was Chubby.
Which is insane because I'm sure you were like 110 pounds.
Yeah. So, you know, or I'd go to like the kitchen to get a glass of water and I would hear, oh my God, what else are you eating? And I would be like,
nothing.
Water.
I was just going to get a glass of water.
I just needed some ice. I'm sorry. You know, like it's really, really hard to like grow up in that, you know, kind of a situation and come out the other side okay, which is why you catch me saying things that like some people just know, but I have to like say out loud, food is morally neutral. You're allowed to have that. It's okay. Nothing bad is going to happen to you if you get fries today.
Oh, but I
and
always
tomorrow you can have
brain spiral
vegetables.
And I'm like, always like, that's it. I've messed it up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had that moment the other day, like after the Super Bowl, like, you know, had some fun Super Bowl snacks, like went a little crazy. And the next day stepped on the scale. Bad idea immediately. Which got to give your body some time to recover.
Yes, it's just retaining from salt and like deliciousness.
Like a 5-pound difference, and I was like, "Oh my god, I've messed it all up.
Yeah,
like it's too far gone. I can't get it back." Like
and that's just so not true.
I know, and it's a horrible way to think that you should just like give up and then just eat whatever you want, like with reckless abandon. Like that's part of the problem, right? Is that like it's the volume of things that we're eating, but I think also just like, you know, over time, I'm sure like my stomach has just stretched out. And so it takes more for me to feel full than maybe, you know, a person that weighs less than I do.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing, you know, and it can be as easy as calories in versus calories out, but also it can be like so much more complex than that.
Yeah, because like, bodies are complex.
Yes, because everybody's body is different. And you know, if you and I ate the same meals all day, every day, from here until the end of time, and we did the same workouts and, you know, all the exact same movements, we would still look totally different.
Yeah, the outcome would be different.
Yes, because our bodies are just different. And also like underlying conditions. Like I had my gallbladder out a couple of years ago. And then because of that, I was so sick. I got really, really thin. And everyone was like, oh my God, she looks fantastic. And I was
thanks, I feel like shit.
And I was like, I haven't eaten in 3 days because I want to throw up every time food is near me. I'm starving, but I can't eat anything. Sick. And then out of nowhere, I still couldn't eat anything, but gained like 50 pounds and like was crying to my GI doctor saying, you have to help me. I don't know what's going on. I haven't eaten in days and I've gained 5 pounds this week. Yeah. And they said, calories in, calories out. And I was like, but if my calories in are 0 and my calories out, I'm running 6 miles a day and working out like strength training on top of that, how have I gained 5 pounds?
Something's wrong.
Something's wrong and you need to help me. And they won't. Like, so it becomes so complex and like they still don't know what's wrong with me. And I just have to, you know, trial and error, figure it out, you know, and like put me on medications until we figure out what's wrong kind of a thing. But it's like, I don't know, metabolism plays into it. Underlying conditions like PCOS play into it. Like, well, and I remember growing up, like I could eat so much healthier than like my best friend from high school. She would eat an entire box of cereal in one sitting. She would eat like half a pizza and she was never more than like a size 3.
Fine. Yep.
And I'm like, that's just metabolism. That's just genetics. Yep. And there's no getting around that.
No, but it can be so painful for your brain.
It is.
Because like I have an older sister who's 5 years older than me and she has been tiny her whole life. And like even when she was in high school, and she would just like eat whatever she wanted and it was fine.
Yeah.
Nothing would happen. And same thing, like then I was like, why am I like having so much trouble with this? But I can remember being in high school and thinking like, I am so obese. Like, and I was like 130 pounds.
Yeah. And you're like,
I was like, I need to lose 30 pounds. Like 100 pounds literally was like what I thought, like that should be my ideal weight.
Yeah.
Like if I'm 100 pounds, I'll be perfectly healthy. And now I look back at like pictures of me in high school and I'm like, oh, she was so thin.
I know.
She was so beautiful and she didn't even know it. Like that makes me so sad that I couldn't just appreciate who I was and like also just like learn. You just have to like, you need like nutritionists. What a great tool. Because I was just telling you this yesterday that I watch a lot of the TLC show, My 600 Pound Life.
Yes.
It makes me feel better about myself. Don't judge me. But anyway, a lot of times the doctor on there, because it's the same doctor every time that does all the surgeries and everything, he will have a nutritionist come out to that person's house and like go through their stuff with them, go through everything that's in their refrigerator, everything that's in their pantry, and like show them like on the labels, like here's how you figure out like, how much of this is like, what's a serving size? What's fat? What's carbs? Like it's crazy to me how many people don't know what those things are because they've just like never had to like, it's just not something that they think about.
Yeah.
Like looking at the back. And now that I'm like such a calorie stickler, I am like constantly looking at the back of things and being like, oh my gosh. And like, it's shocking to even me, like somebody that's like understands what carbs are, understands what protein is. Oh, always have, even since high school.
Right.
Because we did like keto in high school. Like,
yes.
And so I had to learn like what's fat, what's carbs, what's protein, all of that. But like,
is butter a carb?
Is butter a carb? But now it's crazy how I'll see something and be like, oh my God, that has so many calories in it. And I had no idea. And like, I know peanut butter is just my top example because it's like, you just think of like, I'm having some fruit with some peanut butter. It's fine. You literally could like without noticing, eat probably 500 calories worth of peanut butter in no time.
100%.
And also like measuring and weighing things. Like when I started doing that, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
My tablespoon of peanut butter is a lot bigger than an actual tablespoon of peanut butter.
Which is so funny though, because like I grew up having to look at the calories all the time. So I like still sometimes can like guess how many of something you get and how many calories it is and be on the money or really close. Like I'll be like, oh, you get 27 pretzel sticks for 130 calories.
Right.
And I'll be like, why do you know that? And I'm like, because I was a teenage girl in the 2000s. Like
looked at all of that.
Of course I know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh, a serving size of Oreos is 2 Oreos. Yeah. Surprise. Like it's not what you think it is.
No.
So,
and you can see where it would be easy for people to mindlessly like, well, I'm just having 4 Oreos. Like, yeah, but that's almost like, I don't know, 300, 360 calories probably, because I think it's like 180
probably
for 2 of them. Like you can see where like that was quickly like getting up to like, you're, we talked about yesterday, like we were, talking while we were walking about, how like the average like diet is supposed to be like 2,000 calories a day, and so if you're eating 4 Oreos, like you've almost taken up a quarter of your daily intake, and you have no idea. No idea. So it's like you kind of can't blame people. Like like I know they do like food pyramid in school, or at least they did when we were kids. I don't know if they do that. Now it's called
My Plate. There is no pyramid anymore.
Okay, so it's
all on like a dinner
this
plate.
much of your plate should be protein.
Yes,
like, there needs to be more focus on like, like let's be looking at these things and breaking them down and like actually weighing them out and like teaching kids how to understand like what a balanced meal is. Now, also part of the problem with like diet culture and why it is such a big thing is because obesity is such a big thing, especially in the United States. And obesity is a big thing in the United States because of poverty, honestly. Like if people live in food deserts where there aren't any grocery stores, then they don't have access to like fruits and vegetables and whole foods and things like that, which is bad in and of itself. But then also like to survive because they're poor, they eat at fast food restaurants. And I mean, you have no idea, like you can still eat pretty well at most fast food restaurants.
Yes, but it's also expensive to do that.
It is.
Because the things that people can afford from fast food restaurants are going to be things that are like on the dollar menu.
Right.
Which are not going to be your healthier items. It's going to be your Big Macs, or well, probably not a Big Mac. That's more expensive. But like it's going to be your cheeseburgers, your nuggets, your fries, that kind of stuff, things that are deep fried and super unhealthy.
Yeah.
And now I do want to shout out Mythical Kitchen, which is part of Good Mythical Morning. They do all of these things where the chef, Josh, he will cook the exact same meal from 2 different grocery stores, and he will do like Dollar Tree groceries versus like Walmart groceries, and he will buy almost the same thing from there, whatever is comparable, kind of a thing, and then make the same meal, and then have someone come in blindfolded and taste them.
See if they can taste the difference.
Yeah, and they'll say like, which one do you think is from like the higher end place? And sometimes they get it wrong, and it's to be like, you can still make like a nice meal from Dollar Tree, if you do live in a food desert, or like, and your options are like Dollar Tree, Dollar General, or like Walmart, versus going to like like Whole Foods or, you know, something like that. Because sometimes it is like, okay, well, you can get frozen veggies or a can of veggies and like that's your option.
Like it's not ideal, but it'll do.
Right. But at least it's something. Yeah. And unfortunately, like our system just really isn't set up in this country to make sure that everybody has access to nutritious foods and access to the material and knowledge to know what a nutritious meal is, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's pretty alarming, honestly. Like you could see where easily, you know, people quickly devolve into like they're gaining all this weight and they have no idea why. They like feel like they're not eating a lot and they may not be eating a lot, but what they're eating is super high calorie. Yeah. Super like, which like you need that to survive, of course, but also like there's other things to take into account there, right? Like if it's not a bunch of healthy fats, if it's not, you know, like, and it's going to just put more strain on your body. People have no idea. They have no idea about any of that stuff. And so you kind of can't blame people for like falling into this because like you said, like our country does not offer the tools to people to be able to be successful in doing that. Yeah. And like also like poverty again is an issue because then people are working multiple jobs and they don't have time to cook meals for their families or whatever. And so it's just like, you know, throw these pizza rolls. God, love them. I love pizza rolls. I love
a pizza roll
so much. But like, you
I
know,
could eat 100 pizza rolls.
Oh, I could too. I love pizza rolls. So no shame on pizza rolls. But you shouldn't be eating pizza rolls
every day.
No,
they're really like a fun little treat.
They are. They should be treated like that. Yes. But like, you know, when you're a kid or you're a parent that has a kid and you're like, sorry, I have to go to work. Yeah. You know, you're 13 or 14 years old and you can stay home alone, heat up some pizza rolls, you know, and so like it's establishing those habits. Yes. And then it's really, really hard to break that. And that's like, I think something else we were talking about is like, it's very hard to rewire your brain in a way where you understand, like, it's not like I can never have pizza rolls again. Right. Like you have to get rid of that. Like we can't demonize any food and say this is point blank bad. It's not like smoking, you know, where it's just like, well, a little bit. It's like, no, like smoking is bad. Right. Don't do it.
Like, unless you have like an actual allergy or intolerance to a food, then it's not bad for you.
It's not off the table. You can still have pizza rolls.
In moderation. Yes. And moderation is the key. Like, I am a huge sweets fan. I cannot make it without sweets, and I will not. When I had my gallbladder out, they said that for like at least 2 weeks, I was not allowed to have any form of sugar. And I made it 3 days before I broke down in full tears saying life is not worth living if I'm not allowed to have sugar anymore. And Ty went out and bought me sugar-free butterscotch. Yep. And I was like, at least it's something. I just couldn't take it anymore. And so now and like both sides of my family both have like huge sweet tooth kind of a thing. So I never really stood a chance. But now what I do, instead of just like making a full batch of cookies all the time and just like living on sugar if they're in the house or trying to like keep myself from sugar, is I keep fun-sized candy bars in the house. And I make like cookie dough and I pre-portion everything out and then put them in the freezer. Yeah. So then I can say, oh, I get one or two like little cookies. Yeah. And then I move on with my day. Right. And it's like my little treat at the end of the day. And then I'm like, yay, I had a sweet. And then we've all moved on. And I had a balanced meal. I'm a big chicken and a veggie kind of girl. You hear me say it all the time. I mean, chicken and a veggie.
And I'm always like, I want it to be more exciting than that.
That's all I want. Well, normally I'm a huge red meat fan, but red meat hates me. Yeah. It just like rips my stomach up.
Certain kinds of red meat are like that for me too.
So I'm like, I eat chicken a lot in different ways, but then I always want a green veggie. If I go more than like a day and a half without a green veggie, I want to scream. And so I'm like, as long as I'm having chicken and a veggie at least once a day, and then I get my little sweet treat, and then it doesn't really matter what else I have, and I feel like I've had a balanced day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like I still like I'll have dessert every night, but like lately my like hyperfixation dessert has been like warming up some Biscoff cookie butter,
which yum.
It's so good, in the microwave and then drizzling it over a banana. So it's like that's enough to me to be like, yeah, that's a little sweet treat. That's delicious. That's fun. And then I can move on with my life instead of being like, ooh, I want like ice cream really bad and I need a big thing of ice cream and I'm going to eat it all. And like, anyway, diet culture, obviously is like bred from all of this stuff, but also from it's mostly women that are expected to participate in diet culture.
Is rude.
It is rude.
Especially because our bodies are so different. Men can drop weight
very easily.
They're just like, I think I might not have pizza for dinner. Down 5 pounds.
Yeah,
you know? Like it's rude. Like
it has to do with their metabolisms,
yes,
for sure.
For sure. Like women's bodies are made to be, we need more cushion for our organs because they are like made to hold
babies,
children.
Yes.
So we need more cushion to just like protect our wombs. But like our bodies are shorter. So we're going to be more squat, which means we have to hold all of that weight differently and in different spots.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sorry that we're going to have a higher percentage of fat to like protect different areas of our body.
Well, also we have boobs,
yes,
which are just straight fat.
Yes. And like, it's just like different types of tissue and things like that. But like around our hips, things like that, like I'm sorry that we're just built differently.
Well, yeah.
And you don't like that.
I mean, it just makes sense.
You want to make it harder on us.
I think it's by virtue of the fact that like when some of these things were established, like BMI chart, for example, like when that was established, that was probably the 1950s.
Well, and it's sexist and racist.
Well, it is. Yeah. But I think that's because it was white men that were creating those were the people that were in that space to be able to create those things. But also like, I just think, I don't know. There's some like evil cabal of like diet people that are like, this will sell because so many people are in this spot where, you know, they eat these things that are bad for them. They don't have access to these things, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and it's just like, I don't know. Men just hate women for some reason. They just always have. We've just always been hated. And so
really sad episode.
I know. It's just really been a downer. We'll turn it around eventually. But right now, men have always hated women. They've just tried to like make us hate ourselves. And, you know, once like diet culture started to like wind down just a few years ago. I mean, diet culture is still a thing.
Yeah, it's still alive and well.
But body positivity was kind of like becoming the up and up a few years ago. And so then it was kind of like, well, if we can't make them hate their bodies for being fat, what if we make them hate their bodies for literally anything else? Then it's like, well, your skin is dry. You need women now, they sell like deodorant that's like full body deodorant. Yeah. Don't let your body smell like a body. How dare you have skin? Like it's not even like normal deodorant, but they're like, put it everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like now they're marketing like anti-aging stuff to 13-year-old girls because they're like, how dare you age and look like an adult? And I'm like, that's gross.
Isn't that kind of the point to become an adult?
Yes. Otherwise it's pedophilic, you know, like
unsurprising that would happen.
Yeah. So it's just kind of like, how can they keep us down? How can they get our money and like make us feel bad?
But also like, I'm like, make no mistake, because it's not just fat shaming. It's the other way too.
Oh, 100%.
Like women who are perceived as being too skinny are often told, like, hey, you should eat a cheeseburger.
Yes.
It's always a cheeseburger.
Yes.
Just stop that shit.
Right.
Like, literally don't
comment.
You don't have to comment on another person's body. Like, just really keep that to yourself.
Yes.
The only situation in which I'm like, you know, it'd be nice is if you say to someone like, hey, you're looking really great. Like not that you didn't look great before. Like, I feel like that's what people always, you know, like, not that you didn't look great before, but no, like, you're looking really great. You're looking really healthy. Like, you look like you feel good.
Yes.
Great. Awesome. That's all I want to hear. I don't want to hear anything else. You have no idea about what's going on in somebody else's life.
Right.
That is causing whatever's happening to them or how much it haunts them or whatever.
And the people who would notice, who know what's going on in your life would notice if this weight gain, weight loss or something is like, hey, are you feeling well? Like, I've noticed like you talk a lot lately about like the stress in your work. And then I've noticed these things. like, are you sick? Are you okay? Like, in a way that's not like, you should eat a cheeseburger or you should stop eating cheeseburgers.
Right.
Kind of a thing but it's more like, hey, I've noticed a lot going on with you.
A concern
a
for
different way.
A person.
Yes. Not the way your body looks, but like, I've noticed a lot of changes in like your personal life that are,
Instead of the way your body looks is offensive to me and I don't like to have to look at it.
Right.
So I'm going to say something about it.
Exactly.
Which has just been such a big thing for so long.
I know.
Just do not understand it. And I think, we were talking yesterday about it, how people get demonized both ways. Like they get demonized for being fat and being at the gym, or, if they're on TikTok promoting body positivity, they get, shit talked in the comments for being fat. And it's like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Right.
Like, no pun intended. Because you're going to be critical of them either way. So
yes. So why can't anybody at any size go to the gym and feel comfortable being there? And it doesn't really matter why they're there. The whole point is that they're there and they're doing something for them.
Yeah.
Like, I like to work out and I am trying to be in better shape, but also I feel better at the end of the day when I do it. I will never ever be one of those girls who's like, I live for the gym. I love going to the gym. I'm not me if I don't go to the gym, because that's not true. If I could never work out again tomorrow, I would stop.
Yeah, put me on that.
But like, I do it, and the whole time I'm doing it, I'm like, I hate this. I don't like this. But then as soon as I'm done, I'm like, I feel proud of myself for doing it.
Right.
And I like feel stronger today than I did 6 months ago.
Which is not to say that like the gym is for everybody, because it's not.
No.
It's just not.
No.
And that's fine.
Do you ever see those videos where it's like white women will do anything to not actually step foot in a gym, and they're doing those like bungee cord like classes and like things like that? And it's like, you know what? If it still gets them to like move their body and
it's
like
something you enjoy,
then
who cares?
Then who cares that they made it fun?
Yeah.
Why you got to make fun of them?
I don't get it.
Like, I'm sorry, but I don't need to run every day.
No.
And
don't run.
Like, be in a gym to work out and just like move my body.
Also, like, weight is way more related to food than it is to exercise.
Yes.
Like, you could exercise every day and still gain weight.
Yes.
It's really about what you're eating.
Yeah.
Which is just very lost on people. I think that's why people give up so easily with diets and things, is that they're like, and I have to go to the gym every day. And the second they're like, this sucks, they just give up on all of it.
Yeah.
And it's not how this works.
No.
But you wouldn't know that because that's how society tells you it works.
Right.
And so it's really frustrating. And yeah. So do you think diet culture exists in an awful world?
I think that for a while it could accidentally exist.
Yeah.
But I think eventually we would be like, this is not working. And no one likes it.
I wonder if obesity would even be a thing. And the reason I say that is because there's definitely a correlation between obesity and like processed foods.
Mm-hmm.
And that did not become a thing until the 1950s.
Yeah.
So part of me wonders, like, if you're just, and it's also like, if it's a world where you eat what you kill, you're not going to be obese, right?
No.
Because it's just what you have around you, and you have to work hard for it. And if you don't live in a world where it's just like, you go to a restaurant and you point at the thing you want and they bring it out to you.
Right.
Like it just, or you get on your phone and you type in the thing you want and they bring it to your doorstep. Like, it's not like that in, I don't want to say like in an awful world, but like, I don't know if we're like going to have all of those things.
Well, I just don't think that we would, because
we're not going to have genetically modified like anything.
No, the only type of like GMOs that we would have would be like us crossbreeding plants accidentally.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's no way we'd figure that out.
No,
like,
it would all be accidental.
Like, yeah, we're doing this on purpose.
It would be like this plant was right next to this plant and they like kind of merged. We'd be like, oh, hey.
Interesting.
And fascinating.
Yeah.
Wonderful. But like, that's as far as we're getting, kind of a thing. But like, we're not going to have the most of sedentary lives.
No.
Because
you don't have the luxury of that.
Right. Because like, are we having cars?
No.
No. Do we know how computers work? No. Like, we're just not going to have a lot of that
It's
stuff.
just a world that's not set up for like that kind of issue to thrive.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I feel like if anything, diet culture would be like, oh my gosh, those people who work in the fields are like so muscly. Like, that's cool. How do we do that? But then we'd be like, we'll all work in the fields. Like,
and
for
that
a
wouldn't
little bit.
work.
Yeah, we would be like, okay, A, there's too many people here. And B, this isn't very fun.
This is really hard and everything's really heavy and I'm just not feeling it.
And I think eventually, like after a few generations, we would be like, that's interesting. No matter what I do, even though it's just like what that Libby over there is doing, our bodies look very different. And also all our children's bodies look like our bodies and not like their bodies, which tells me
that I don't necessarily have the most control over it.
Yeah. Like
you have some control over it, sure.
Yes. But at the end of the day, genetics play into it.
Yeah.
Just as much as food plays into it, just as much as exercise plays into it. You know, they all have their roles.
Yeah.
But I think that like if we started some fad diet, like if one of the Libbies came up to one of the Haylies and was like, oh my gosh, you look so great. You know, whether that's I'm super muscly or she's like, you're so pale and fat. Like, how did you do it? I would say, well, this is what I do. And then you would do it and you would be like, hey.
That's not working for me.
Exactly. And then we would be like, turns out that's not how this works. We would just be like, that doesn't actually work. The end.
I do also want to do a callback to our episode about drug use, because we talked a little bit about it, I think, towards the end. But like, you know, I don't think that obesity in an awful world is going to be a widespread problem.
No.
But I do think it's a problem that's still going to pop up here and there.
Yeah.
Because I do genuinely believe that like food addiction is a real thing.
100%. And I think some bodies are just predisposed to that.
Yeah.
You know?
Which we kind of talked about. And like, it's just the same thing of like, there will be addicts in an awful world. There will also be people who are obese because they're addicted to food or because that's just the way their body is built.
Yes.
Like, I don't know.
I'm just saying, in a world full of Haylies and Libbies, the Haylies and Libbies who first discovered chocolate, you best believe those Haylies will be addicted.
Oh, yeah.
Like immediately.
For sure. But it's like, is it going to have is it going to be processed the way it is today?
Right.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So it just makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Because this definitely like obesity itself wasn't an issue probably until like the 20th century. And then also like we've already talked about how it used to be considered like opulent because you were rich and if you were fat. But I also think we probably didn't know like a lot of the negative things that can occur to your body because of obesity.
Right.
So like I don't think it's a problem that's been thought about for super long, but I also think that's because it hasn't been a problem for super long.
Right.
So like, you know, even though there were, you know, people who were obese 200 years ago, I just don't know if you go back a ton farther than that, if it's like a widespread problem.
Yeah.
The way that like famine is historically a widespread problem.
And did you know that like people who go through famine, it genetically will change them. And so then when they have kids, their kids are more likely to be bigger because it has changed their genetics to store fat.
Which makes sense.
In case of famine.
Yeah, your body's trying to prepare for that.
Yes. So sometimes I'm like, okay, thank you, Irish genetics. I'll make it through a famine, whatever. But like, sometimes I just want to feel good when I look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I don't need to hold on to all of this, but I'm prepared in case a famine hits.
So yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's true that like over thousands of years, our bodies have evolved into what they are.
Yeah.
And our life today looks different than life looked even 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's tough to say.
Yeah.
But
I think that like I said, that maybe we would accidentally like start a fad diet by just being like, well, this is what I do and it works for me kind of a thing. But as people were like
burn out quickly.
Yes. As people figured it out, we would be like, this doesn't work at all. Could we figure out what calories are?
No, I don't know how they figure that out now. It's something with like burning. I don't know.
Yes.
Don't ask me.
But I do think that we would be like, I feel better when I eat a well-rounded meal.
Right.
Rather than just being like, I'm going to eat one snacks all day.
Right. Or I eat only red meat.
Right. Like, or I eat only beans. Like, we would just be like, you know what? Life sucks doing boring, that. Yeah. And I feel like crap.
I don't want to do that.
So I think eventually we wouldn't have like the science for it. Yeah. But we would be like, you need something leafy. You need something like that keeps you full. We would be like, these are the foods that keep you full. These are the foods that like, make you feel just like better. I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. But like, or, how like pirates got scurvy because no one ate fruit.
I know.
We would be like, oh, well, now we all know.
Because it would perish on there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But so we'd be like, well, now we know you have to have your fruits or you'll get your scurvy.
Or you're going to have scurvy. So it's not ideal.
And that's how we would get a well-rounded meal.
Yeah.
But I just don't think that we would fully have diet culture because we would be like not there to just trick people and get their money. And not really there to just be like, hey, fatty.
It's the social part of diet culture that we wouldn't have.
Right.
That would just,
Because I feel like we would just very much be more about like community. Like I know we talked about
I'm not really concerned about your body.
No. And I know we talked before about like individualism versus collectivism. But like, even though we're both very much about like our alone time and like more living alone and things like that, I still think community would be very key.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not really like into being shysters or anything and trying to like trick people and get their money and just be like, haha, dummy, I've tricked you and you'll fall for whatever I tell you. We would just be like,
for the good of it all.
Hey, this is what I do. Maybe it helps other people.
Yeah, I don't know.
If not, then we'll talk about it.
Then don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out as a team.
Well, I don't think I have anything left to say about fad dieting other than don't do it.
Yeah, please don't.
Just, like see a nutritionist or something. They can help you.
And food has no morality.
That's right. And a nutritionist can also help you come up with like what your body needs specifically, which is really cool and something that you should look into if you are unhappy with your body. But also just like life's too short to be like worry so much about how you look. Unless it's actually killing you, then,
Yeah.
It's like my 600-pound life where I'm just like, I just don't want you to die. And that's the path you're headed down. So, we got to make some changes. But anyway.
But also, like, eat a cookie. It's okay.
A
sweet treat here and there does nothing.
But don't eat, 5 cookies every day.
Yeah.
That's not advised.
No.
Even though it sounds fun.
It does sound fun.
I know it sounds fun. So anyway, thanks for tuning in to our episode about dieting and fad diets. And diet culture. Friendly reminder that we do have a Patreon. You can become a patron by checking us out at patreon.com/anawfulworldpodcast. There's a couple of really cool tiers that you can sign up to be in. Check it out. Different things and content that you get from it. Early access for some folks, which is really fun. And then as always, tune in wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We're on all of those things. Like us, subscribe to us so you get those new episodes every Friday. Until then, though, we hope that your day is simply awful.